to episode 8 of the Shanty Knits podcast. My name is Chantal. I am your host. I want to thank any new viewers. Thank you for giving me a shot and joining me for a little and taking a little bit of time out of your day to join me. I would like to give a big thank you to any returning viewers. It has been a while, so I am going to break this episode into two parts because I have a lot to chat with you about. The first part is going to be the FO section, and then the second part is going to be my whips and the yarn that I've dyed while we've been on hiatus, and then two books that I want to talk to you about, which you've probably seen, but just my 2 cents about them. I can be found on Ravelry as Shanty Knits, and then on Instagram as Shanty_D. I want to start off with this lovely shawl. It is a triangular shawl. It's called the Astaria shawl by Kasha. I texted her earlier and asked her, or DM'd her earlier and asked her how to pronounce her name phonetically, and she did me one better. She actually sent me a voice message, so I'm going to play that for you now so I don't butcher her name.
Katarzyna przez dziecko.
So hopefully you heard that, and I don't have to butcher her name. If you didn't, I will just, either way, I'll probably just add a little bar down below to say what the name of the shawl is. This is knit with Round Table yarns and her Merlin base called Amaying, and it's a stunning green. It's not showing up great on camera. I apologize for the lighting. We're in my living room because it's the warmest place in the house right now. There's a fire going in the background. You probably won't be able to see it for most of the episode, but at least maybe you'll be able to hear some of the crackling. It'll add a nice ambiance for you, and it won't be annoying per se, I guess. But this top part, oh, that's a little better. This top part has a textured stitch to it, and it's a really easy memorizable textured stitch that the Amaying is knit in. And then it has a lace panel at the bottom. It's all knit in one, so it's not like an applied lace border. And it has a lace panel at the bottom. And then to break up that section, a bit closer, there are bobbles, a row of bobbles at the bottom to kind of break up the lace, the textured stitch and the lace. At the bottom, I did the I-cord bind off, but I did it in the main body color, the Amaying, so it adds a nice little color pop at the bottom. I love a color block and a color pop. So that's this one. I've been hesitant to wear it. I've only worn it maybe twice, but I wanted to keep it nice and pristine and not have to reblock it for you before I showed it on the podcast. But now that I've shown it to you, you bet your bottom dollar I'm going to be wearing that baby. I am starting to really fall in love with like these deep, rich greens. Usually I'm like a teal person or a pink person, but these greens have really been calling me lately. So one of my whips you'll see has a little bit of green in it, so I think you'll be seeing a lot more greens on this channel. Every time I'm looking on a yarn site, the greens just call to me for some reason, but I'm definitely loving the green. Did I mention what the gray was? The gray is Knit Picks Fingering, the gloss. And did I write the colorway? I did not, but I think it's called like Sterling or something like that. It's one of their lighter grays. And then the shawl itself took 179 grams total, 113 grams of the green, and then 66 grams of the gray. So you could get this with, if you had one color, 200 grams would do you just fine. Even like if you had like something left over for the lace panel and then like one full skein of something, you could get this done. And then also, depending on how large you want it, you can always just kind of calculate, because she gives you the stitch count, so you can calculate how much you need to make it smaller if you'd like. It is a very well written pattern. I think it's charted and written, but don't quote me on that. It's been a while. This one is from September, so like end of summertime was when I knit this one. So I'm not quite sure, but I think the pattern is both charted and written. But I'll link all of that down below in the description. Everything, most things that I'll talk about, I'll link below. And if I don't, again, feel free to just shoot me a message, and I will be more than happy to answer whatever questions you have. The second FO that I want to talk to you about, I have it, but I'm not going to show it because I've been wearing the heck out of it, unlike this one. And it is an 80-10-10 MCN merino cashmere. Yes, merino cashmere nylon base. So it has pilled a lot, and I didn't think to depill it before coming on here, but it's one of the sweaters that I wear in the house. My husband says I shouldn't wear it in the house because it is a nice sweater, but it is so cozy and so comfortable. It has just given me life through the changing seasons. So I've definitely been wearing the mess out of that one. So it is a little pilly because of the cashmere in it, but it is a great, great pattern. One of the things that I really, really like about this pattern, it's by Audrey of the Yarn Flakes. I don't know if I said that. It's been a while. Forgive me. It's by Audrey of the Yarn Flakes. I'll add some pictures in just so you know exactly what I'm talking about and I don't sound like a crazy person and you have to stop to click to see what I'm referencing. So I'll add some pictures in. So you know what I'm talking about when referencing the sweater. But the bust starts in the pattern, they are by cup size, so you can make the pattern fit you even better without having to do any math or anything like that on your own. It's all written there in the pattern. And then you can also add in waist shaping if you want additional shaping in the garment. It is originally designed as a pullover, but I made it a cardigan with a steep down the middle because of the cashmere, and I think it's easy. I usually do machine steek, so I did machine steek that one and then cut it and added the button band to it. The button band that I did came out of this book, and it is on page 114, and it's the open cable. So that's the button band that I did for that sweater, and I thought that cable kind of reflected the colorwork pattern. I think it's called like the Eye of Sauron. It's what she kind of modeled it, was her inspiration behind the sweater itself. So I thought those open cables really went with the colorwork pattern in the garment itself. So that's the button band that I did instead of like a standard 2x2 rib. I did make some other modifications. Forgive me, I have to check my notes. The striping that I did at the bottom. There is striping at the bottom of the garment, but I wanted a little bit more of a bold stripe, so I did 2 of the green, then 1 of the red, 1 of the yellow, 2 of the green, 1 of the yellow, and then finished off the ribbing in the red. The contrasting colors are, the green is Knit Picks palette in the Douglas fir, and then the yellow is Cloudborn Maize Heather. And that's pretty much the only modifications that I made on that sweater. If I were to go back and knit that sweater, I think I would make it, the arms just a little bit longer, because I do wear it around the house. It kind of rides up a little bit, so I think I would have made it a little bit longer, just for my personal liking. There's nothing wrong with the pattern. The way that they ride up, it's not like an awkward length. It's like a bracelet length, whereas I like more of down at the bottom to kind of cover all of my hands or my wrists, because I have cold hands, and it just makes it a lot warmer that way. So that is my second FO. And I think that's all that I needed to say about that. The next FO I also don't have. It was a gift. It was the Festive Cheer cowl by Hannah of the Tales of Yarnia. And that is an Advent cowl. So it comes in two sizes. So it's basically like you either want a one loop or a double loop, and then obviously it's easily modified because it's just a slip stitch pattern of a main color that breaks up those minis. So if you have more minis or less minis that you want to use, you definitely can modify the pattern that way. But as the pattern is written, it's for 12 minis or 24 minis, and it's 20-gram minis. So what you do is you break those minis up into 10-gram balls. So it's like 1 through 12 or 1 through 24, and then I did then 12 or 24. Did I do? Which one did I do? So let's say I did 1 through 12, and then I did 12 to 1. So how she has it written, you do 1 through 12, then 1 through 12 again, and then the ends of the cowl is grafted together. So when I grafted it, mine looked like if the one starting point was that blue. There was a slip stitch motif to break it up in the middle, but mine was just a continuous blue at the start, and then I liked it that way, especially because it's knit in the round, but you knit it in a tube, so like aesthetically to me that was more pleasing. But depending on the minis or the type of look that you're going for, you can mix it up. It is a very easily modified pattern because it's just you're taking those minis, splitting them up evenly, and then you have that slip stitch motif in the main color, which I think you only need 30 grams for. I don't know if I wrote it down. I didn't, but I think you only need 30 grams for the main color, and then the 20-gram minis and however many that you want. I really enjoyed that pattern. I didn't use it with this year's Advent. I used it with last year's Advent, which I got was the Hugh Loco Harry Potter Advent. I think it was just Harry Potter Advent or something like that. I don't think it was like Hogwarts. I think it was her Harry Potter Advent calendar for 2019. And then I have pictures. I'm going to try to insert them in here as well so you can see the minis in their raw form and then the picture of the cowl itself. So that is a way, it was a Christmas gift. I'm not a cowl person. I will wear shawls all day, but I'm not necessarily a cowl person. So I did gift that, but it was definitely very pleasant to knit. And that again is by Hannah of Tales of Yarnia, and she is Yarnia Designs on Ravelry. The next finished object, I have to do a quick wardrobe change, so I am going to switch her out and put on that, and I will be right back. Okay, so the next FO that I want to talk to you about is called the Pinri Cardigan, and it is by Audrey of the Yarn Flakes. And this one is you knit it flat, so the reverse stockinette is your right side, but I mean you're knitting it flat, so you're knitting and purling either way. And then there is short rows in the pattern. The cable motif at the front, you knit while you're knitting the whole cardigan, so it's not something that is applied at the end. You knit that while you knit the cardigan. Let me take it off actually so you can see that a little bit better. I will have pictures of it on my project page and add some in here as well, just so you can see some close-ups. Oh, I need to snip it in. Of the sweater, there is short rows in it to do to make the back raise up a little bit. I don't know that you can see it on the camera, and you definitely can't see it in pictures, but like if you're looking up close and you're a knitter, you'll know what it is when you see it. Just because it's on the wrong side, it's not going to be totally invisible, but unless you're a knitter or like have a hawk eye, you're not really going to see it. And I apologize for the lighting. You're in my living room. There's nothing I can do about that. It's winter time. So I apologize for that. But this yarn, it's not rustic, I wouldn't say. It's 100% llama, and it's by Haiku. So it's 100% llama, and it's definitely soft to the touch, but like on your more sensitive areas, like sometimes when I'm wearing it, this little right here where it's really kind of sensitive might itch a little bit, but to me it's fine. My husband says it's kind of itchy, but if you're not really sensitive to wool, I don't think that it would make a difference. It is very heavy, so I didn't write down how many grams I used. Let me double check. I don't remember writing that down. No, I didn't. But it is on my project page, and for how many grams I used, you wouldn't expect it to be this heavy, but it is heavy. It's also very cozy because of the weight of it, I think, for me. If you're somebody who's sensitive to like the weight of cardigans or clothing, then it may not be a yarn that you may want to make a cardigan out of. A shawl or a cowl might do. I don't know that I would do a hat because as you start to sweat, it may prickle you a little bit, but I like the yarn. Let me show you the back. Like I said, I don't think that you'll be able to see some of those short rows. Yeah, you can't. But unless you're a knitter, you definitely can't see it. The cable pattern is also repeated on the hem of the sleeve. And then on the bottom hem as well. And then that reverse stockinette side is the one that is the right side of the fabric for this pattern. And she makes that very clear in the pattern, so you really can't get confused if you're following the pattern. She makes it very clear that this is the right side, the reverse stockinette is the right side, what to do for the shaping and how those are done on the wrong side. I believe there are most of Audrey's patterns have tutorials linked with them, so it's not really easy to get lost. For the sleeves and this join right here, can't remember exactly, but I think, yeah, it's all knit in one and picked up. So you pick up for the front and then start knitting the front, and then for the sleeves you pick up and knit the sleeves down, so it's not like pieced together at this part. I think that's everything for that, but let me check to make sure. Yep, I'm doing great. For not doing this for a while, I'm remembering all the stuff I wrote down. I didn't write down enough, but I'm remembering what I wrote down. And, oh, so for this cable pattern, she actually tells you how to do the cabling without the cable needle. So it is super easy. It's not something that you constantly have to have a cable needle for. It is a cable without a cable needle, and she explains that very well in the pattern. And then she says if you would like to do it with the cable needle, that's fine, but she outlines exactly what you have to do to cable without a cable needle. This was the first time that I did cabling without a cable needle, and even like sometimes 1x1 cables, I like to use a cable needle just because I think it makes a difference in the way that my stitches pop out with the cable. I think I pull too tight when I don't have a needle, or I like grip it really hard to cable without a cable needle, but this one was really easy the way that she explained it. So that is a plus for the pattern. It definitely gives you a couple of tips for that. I'm going to do a quick wardrobe change to a shawl, and then I'm going to put a cardigan underneath her as well. So we're going to talk about the shawl first and then the cardigan, just so I don't have to keep getting up and switching her out. And then those would be the last two objects for the finished objects of this section. So I will be right back. So this is the last two FOs that I have to show you today. The first one I'm going to talk about is this wrap. It is the Oceanborn wrap by Audrey of the Yarn Flakes. It was a test knit that I did. It's not this. These two are the last two that I have, and when I post this, I don't think they'll be released yet, but they are coming in the month of January, so they will be up shortly. So this is the Oceanborn wrap. It is supposed to be knit in a DK weight yarn, but because gauge is not, it's necessary, but it's not like a strict gauge. I knit it in the Cloudborn worsted, wool worsted? Yes, Cloudborn worsted. And I got a little bit larger wrap width-wise, but I only used 3.5 balls, so I got the same length of the wrap in the hole. So it's a little bit larger width-wise, but for the length, it's the same length that it would be if it was in a DK weight yarn. So it has cables on 50%, this cable motif, it's all over cable motif, on 50% of the wrap. And then how the construction is, on the next 25, you'll do part of the cables and then some just basic knit purl, and then on the last 25%, you would do just a knit purl motif. So, let me see if I can show you. This is the 25% that doesn't have the full cable, so you can kind of see that this cable right here in the center is cut in half. So that's what you do for the next 25% of it. And then on the last 25%, you'll just have straight knit purl going on. And because of that, if you don't block it and you're using like a wool, one side is going to be stretched in a little bit more than the other, so it's definitely essential that you block it because of those cables. I did one modification to this, and what I did was add buttons to this plain knit purl side. So the button, it's this thing that you see right here, super tiny, but it can fit through little area space in the cable, so I can button it instead of just having it hang. And since it doesn't need a buttonhole anywhere along that ridge because it's a purl area, I can fit into it, and it has worked out great. I've worn this twice since getting it. It's definitely very, very warm. I would definitely recommend. It is a box store yarn, so Cloudborn, I think it comes from Craftsy, Blueprint, and then Craftsy. So it's their brand yarn, and it is really, really, really warm. So I wore this twice, and then I wore it with a cardigan underneath of it. The cardigan that I took the pictures in, actually, it's Audrey's Aprofina pullover, but I made it into a cardigan. And these blues, they go very well together. The blue in the sweater is one that I hand dyed, and then this is commercial dyed, but they go very well together. So I wore it with that, and I think it was about 40 degrees outside, and I had on a jacket, and I had to take off the jacket because the scarf was just keeping me so warm, just wrapped up. And because of the buttons, it stays where it's supposed to stay underneath, like it's not doing that whole seesaw thing. So I definitely like the buttons, and I would definitely recommend it. I'll try to remember the size of the button to put it in my project page. I'll have to measure it because it came out of, you know, those grab bag buttons where there's like a whole bunch of random buttons. It came out of one of those. So they are 3 buttons. 2 of them are the same. One of them is different because it was that grab bag button thing. So I just went through it and grabbed some buttons. So this is like a flower button, plastic button, and then this is like the opal shell kind of color. So the lighting is not great, but it will be on my project page so you can kind of see the shimmer of that button. So this I would definitely recommend. It's easily modified, so if you didn't want to do, if if you got tired of the cables, you could stop doing part of the cables and just move on to the next section. It's really easy. The cables are super fun, and they look so elegant on that wrap. And then there's no like I-cord or anything at the bottom, and yet it's straight. I think it's a combination of how she has you do the setup for the pattern and the wool itself. Like, it came out, it blocked so nice. Like, as I was knitting it, I'm like, oh, I think it's going to be a little bit tighter, because I did kind of swatch just because I was using the wool, but I just swatched like the first 5 rows of the pattern just to make sure like it wasn't too tight. And I did have to go up a needle size originally than what I thought it was, so I'm glad that I did do, even as tiny as that swatch was, I'm glad I did do that swatch, because I knew I wanted it a little bit looser in the fabric. And then once I did block it, it just drapes wonderfully. On the edges you do garter, so it's knit, and then on the very edge it is a slip stitch edging, and you do that all at once. You don't come back and pick it up and do an I-cord slip stitch edge, so it comes out really nice on the edge. So for this, because the edges are slip stitch, what I did was when I slipped those stitches back on, so like when I brought it to the front and knit, I just made sure that I wasn't knitting those first 3 stitches really tightly, and the edge came out really nice, really sturdy. It has a little bit of stretch, but it's not too tight and it's not too stretchy. So I think it came out really good. I made sure to be really mindful of not really pulling those edge stitches. So that's definitely something I would recommend. I'm going to put that in my project notes as well, just so if you're reading through it and no one else has noted that, it's definitely something to keep in mind, not to make those edge stitches way too tight. Because the benefit and the payoff, like if you're knitting this out of a fabric that blocks out really well, it's going to come off really good. And I'm going to wear this a lot more, just because that sweater is, I think that's an MCN as well, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to check my project pages, but the Afrofina, I think that's an MCN as well. But the blue that I dyed, I want to say that's like a bamboo merino blend. And these two together, it's so soft, so cozy, and so warm. I'm going to be definitely pairing that with a lot more outfits in the future. And now that I have shown you, this is going right in the main staple of the wardrobe for sure. So, we're rounding the bend. This is, brain fart, Scattered Skies Pullover. And guess what? I made it a cardigan. So the buttons on this, I'll try to bring it closer so you can see, are the leftover buttons from the Sauron cardigan. Because of that open cable button work, I didn't know exactly how many buttons I would need. So I ordered a bunch of those particular style of button, and I liked the button, so I knew that I would be able to use it in a different project anyway. So I bought a bunch. I had some left over, and I think I have 7 more, the last 7 left over, so that's definitely enough for like a cardigan with a structured button band, especially if it's cropped, more than enough. And then if not, if I have a couple left over, I'll throw them in with that grab bag of buttons that I have. And I totally forgot that I had that until I was like, I really want to add some buttons. What size should I add? And then I was like, I have a big thing of buttons, and I can't believe I forgot about it, because they're random buttons, so like it's nothing that I would pick up and use for like a button band unless I wanted, like, it was like something playful in the cardigan that I would use just a random assortment of buttons for. But that wrap was perfect. I only needed 3 buttons where I wanted to place them, and I'll again put pictures up so you see where I've placed those buttons, and it worked out out perfectly. I found two of the same and one that I could put in the middle that was like a centerpiece but still fit through that little pearl area in the cable. It was perfect. Back to this one. Scattered Skies Pullover. Obviously knit in a pullover fashion. It's knit in the round, so all in one. You start, it's top down. When I cast on, I don't think that it'll pick up, but I did a Turkish cast on. Can't really see it. A Turkish cast on, so I had, it's like the way that I did it was like a provisional cast on without the extra step. And so I just had those extra stitches on a cord at the top, and then I knit coming down. And she has some short rows in the pattern as well, but I added short rows in the collar just to raise it up just a little bit. But I mean, short rows is something that you can easily modify, and once you get, it doesn't show up great in mine. Hannah knit hers in all white, so, or it's like a gray color, so you can definitely see her bobbles more than you can see mine. You can see them in real life, but on camera or like in pictures, it's not really going to show the wonderful texture that it has, but up close, it looks stunning. And then the colors that it plays with, it is amazing. This is knit in Holst Garn, is the maroon that I held throughout. Holst Super Soft in the slow colorway, and then Hue Loco Series Silk in the We've Got the Beats colorway. So that's what gives it the variegated, was the Hue Locos We've Got the Beats. And the Holst Garn is definitely a sturdy yarn, and I didn't know, because they're knit together, I didn't know which one was bleeding, but I know, and it's the first time that I used Holst, so I had to soak it, I think 2 or 3 times to make sure before it stopped bleeding, and then like soaked it in the wool wash. So I'm not sure which one of those were bleeding, but one of them was, but the color still came out stunning. Hannah has you do 1 by 1 twisted rib for the hem, which I remembered, but when I got to the sleeve, I didn't remember, so that's knit in 2 by 2. And then the collar, like I said, I did some short rows in the collar, so you can see those short rows decreasing to come to that point in the front. So I did some short rows in the collar, and then for the collar, to give it a little bit more firmness, sturdiness, I used 2 strands of Holst held together with 1 strand of Siri alpaca, and that definitely got the look that I was going for. I really like the sturdiness of it. It gives it a little bit more structure. Got it. On it. It gives it a little bit more structure. Like this one doesn't, it's still kind of floppy, but this one is definitely like structured. If I were to leave this open, it wouldn't be floppy or like kind of come open a little bit. It would stay where it's supposed to stay. So that's what I did for the collar, but every other hem is just as written in the pattern. So I think those are the main modifications that I made. I did do cardigan, did the 3 strands for the collar, and then it was purely by mistake that I did the 2 by 2 on the cuff, and since I did it on the cuff, I did it on the collar as well. So that was it for this one. Let me check my notes to make sure, because I don't want to cheat you. This was a very fun pattern, so I don't want to cheat you on it, and it was the first time that I used Siri Silk, and I have to say I am a fan. It's still more floof than I'm used to, but I am starting to lean into the mohair trend. A little late to the party. It's okay. Better late than never. But I did like working with the Siri Silk. If I had a choice, I probably would choose Siri Silk over mohair. I I don't have a mohair cardigan, which is not yet. It's in my whip section. I will share that with you. But for the Siri Silk, it's definitely warm, and I definitely like the feel of it against my skin. So right now, I like Siri more than I like mohair if I were given the choice. But both of them still kind of have the same effect. So it's not really, like, you can substitute one for the other if you were a fan of either or. Let me double check that I talked about everything. Oh, I didn't. For the wrap, there is a bind off that Very Pink Knits has, and I'll try to remember to link it. I don't have a pen or else I would star it. But there is a bind off that is stretchy but sturdy. And it's not like the whole yarn over thing where it can kind of flare out. It is still stretchy, but it's sturdy. So I'll try my best to remember to link that in the video below for you guys, because it is a really good bind off technique to have. And honestly, it's one that I use probably 80% of the time, unless it's like I-cord or anything like that. Like, I like that bind off rather than the standard bind off and then the yarn over bind off. I would prefer that bind off over anything. I wish I had a pen and I would start it for you. And hopefully I'll remember when I wrap this up. But that is it for my finished cardigans, or finished objects. I'm trying to walk and chew gum here. That is it for my finished objects. I'm going to reset, and then I'll just film the second part of this, so I'll probably be wearing I am going to be wearing the same outfit, but it's just going to be the second part of this podcast, so I'm not keeping you here and monopolizing your time. But I do appreciate you joining me. If that is all that you wanted to see of my knitting, thank you again. I hope you hit the like and give me a subscribe. And then if you are joining me for part 2, that one will probably be uploaded a little bit later because they take a really long time to upload and edit. But if you're joining me for part 2, thank you for joining me for part 2. Thank you again, and have a wonderful, wonderful